When I found out about the new Shaman King anime, that was the highlight of the day for me. The day the teaser trailer dropped, I couldn't think of anything else. The anime itself won't drop until April of 2021. 10 months is a long wait, but fans may still have time to make their voices heard on what direction the anime should go. Chances are, the anime has been in production for a while, and at least a few episodes are in a complete enough state to edit. With a new anime coming up, I thought I would list a few things I think would be important for the new anime's success. My channel is still very small, so I doubt that this video will get all that far, but as a big fan of Shaman King, I gotta do something, right? Back in 2017, Hiroyuki Takei, the author of the original Shaman King manga, was approached with plans to make a new adaptation of his work. The discussions unfortunately fell through when it became clear that the production wouldn't be able to use the original cast or the music. Takei had grown very fond of the original anime's cast when it was being produced, as well as its music. So when those who brought forth the plans for the production were unwilling to negotiate bringing back the original cast and clearing the rights for use of the original anime soundtrack, that was a deal breaker for Takei. That may very well be a deal breaker for me too, as well as a good chunk of the Shaman King fanbase, I'm sure. The original anime's voice cast boasts some great performances. For example, Yuko Sato does a good job of emphasizing Yo's calm, friendly demeanor through mostly warm, gentle tones. So in the few scenes where Yo is angry or emotionally worked up, there is a big impact. Then there's the music. I do hope that the new anime's production team managed to secure the rights to the original soundtrack. The Oversoul theme does play in the background of the teaser for the new anime, but that doesn't necessarily mean we will be hearing that opening music, or any of the other music in the new anime. It could just be fan service. It could be that those who put the trailer together used the Oversoul theme as decoration, not realizing that the fans might expect the music to show up in the anime. I'm pretty sure those working on the project know that the fans are going to be expecting the original music and the original cast to return. But without being in the room with them, we won't be able to confirm that. We won't be able to tell what thoughts or decisions they make. The landscape of mature or controversial content in anime constantly fluctuates with each new decade and each new controversy. Some material is harder to accept than other material. Topics that were not incisive years ago suddenly become incisive, while other topics deemed unacceptable gradually develop a warmer reception. This is especially true for TV anime. While OVA series usually have the benefit of having few standards and practices in place that would normally encourage censorship, with the age of the internet came stronger scrutiny over the content produced through various media. Add to that the increasing influence of American and non-Japanese companies and influencers on anime production committees, along with their differing sensibilities, and it becomes extremely difficult to navigate how best to present the material being adapted. Nowadays, often the only way controversial content can go uncensored is if it is vitally important to the story. Shaman King's first anime adaptation was a mixed bag when it came to presenting controversial elements in its story. For instance, the scene where Faust 8 vivisecs Manta is portrayed in a more abstract manner in the anime. Yet the anime adds some controversial content of its own for certain scenes every now and then. It is likely that either Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or the newest adaptation of Hunter x Hunter will be the standard by which fans will gauge the new Shaman King anime. Regarding the original Hunter x Hunter anime, a lot of the more violent content from the manga actually managed to be retained. The second Hunter x Hunter anime, on the other hand, censored some of this same material, especially in the earlier seasons. Though the second anime adaptation of Hunter x Hunter had a good amount of censorship, the Chimera arc retained most of its brutality, in spite of said censorship. This is fitting for Hunter x Hunter's most brutal story arc. It just wouldn't be the same if that dark tone was diminished. Many of us Shaman King fans are likely going to believe that pretty much all of the Shaman King stories should go uncensored. But with the social climate we live in now, those new to the Shaman King franchise, and those who aren't even fans or normally interested in the franchise, are likely to deem at least some of its content problematic. I know, a lot of us hate hearing that word when it comes to content in a work of fiction. I view it as a curse word nowadays. Nonetheless, that word will be thrown about and likely have some impact on how this anime is produced. One thing that could be considered problematic is Shaman King's depiction of foreign cultures. Shaman King is often lauded for the extreme amount of research that went into its creation. Numerous cultures are on display, and much detail is devoted to each culture's view on shamanism. The characters belonging to these cultures who are important to the plot are very well developed, displaying complex backstories and motivation. Yet, many of Shaman King's characters, no matter how well developed, could sometimes be considered stereotypical in appearance and behavior. Even if the material comes from good intentions, it could still come off as racist or discriminatory. For instance, Silva and the various other Native American characters seen throughout this story are portrayed in a mystical light and often wear tribal clothing, and clothing typically associated with Native Americans. While the clothing these characters wear could be seen as a point of pride by some Native American viewers, others might want to distance themselves culturally from such a depiction, and may see these characters as a missed opportunity. The main dilemma regarding Shaman King's Native American characters lies in what they do. Throughout history, Native Americans have been portrayed as mystics, making use of various powers and speaking in riddles. This depiction is so frequent that it is a trope, the magical Native American. There aren't all that many well-known movies and series that try to portray Native Americans in a fully human light. And even then, those in charge of the productions often seem to feel obligated to retain at least some mysticism to get butts in seats. In Shaman King, mysticism and magic are very important to the story. The Native American characters pretty much have to be examples of the magical Native American in order for the story to progress. Some Native Americans could take offense to the magical Native American trope, believing that this depiction could influence how real Native Americans are seen by the public. Again, some members of the Native American audience may take pride in the Patch Tribe's badass depiction, but others may not. And then there's a certain detail regarding Yo and Anna's relationship. It is established early on that Yo and Anna are in an arranged marriage. This concept alone is pretty controversial from a Western standpoint, and even Manta and Amidamaru are surprised when they first hear of it. This detail managed to be retained in the original anime, but another detail was dropped. On the night before Yo and his friends leave to go to the Shaman fight tournament, Anna goes to Yo's bedroom. Shaman fights have been established to be very dangerous, often deadly affairs, and it is implied that Anna believes she may never see Yo again. So on that night, Anna asks Yo if she can sleep with him. Yo replies yes before the story moves on to the next scene, implying that the two spent last night having their first time. For the manga, this scene is an important part of Yo and Anna's characterization, especially later when it is implied that the result of that night led to Anna becoming pregnant, her pregnancy eventually resulting in Shaman King's sequel series. No sex is shown in this scene, yet because these two characters were still young enough to be considered children, that apparently made this detail by default too explicit to adapt in the original anime. This isn't too surprising. Shaman King can have some pretty mature subject matter for a story aimed at a shonen demographic. There's also the fact that, though Yo and Anna's first time may only be implied, even the implication of sexual thoughts or activity regarding underage characters is often seen as too much by Western audiences. No doubt Japanese audiences also find such topics uncomfortable to dwell on. But until recent years, enough of Japan's audience could acknowledge the context behind non-pornographic use of these topics. It's only recently that Japan's government has passed legislation to regulate such content, and it seems a good chunk of Japan's anime and manga communities believe the legislation to be too sweeping in its reach. If Yo and Anna's first time is retained, there is at least some chance that someone will deem this scene, or the entire story, as child porn, especially in the world of today. Yet to remove the scene will require the removal of an entire subplot, which will likely upset a good chunk of Shaman King's fanbase. What would have to be changed to please these various parties? How much of the original source material would be allowed to remain uncensored? It's a very delicate balancing act. I worry a lot nowadays for the story material presented in anime and manga. There is a lot of tricky material I want to be retained in Shaman King's new adaptation, as well as many other anime adaptations to come. I'm sure it's the same with a lot of other Shaman King fans, and otakus in general. If whatever production company is in charge of this new anime felt they had to change Chocolov's name, I would understand. But Chocolov McDonald wouldn't be where he is in the story if he hadn't had his regrets as a former gang leader. For a story that is ultimately about love and pacifism, violence is very important in the world of Shaman King. Yet the fact that many of the characters involved in the violence are still children could prove problematic for Western audiences. I don't want the characters to be aged up to soften the violence. I don't want Yo and Anna's relationship to be toned down. I don't want the appearance of any of the characters to change. There's so much about Shaman King's original source material that I want to be retained in the new anime. Yet there's also so much content that could now be considered problematic. To whoever is in charge of this anime's production, please listen to the core fans. Don't focus exclusively on those who are new to the series. And don't bother with the concerns of people who won't even watch the anime anyway. If Shaman King has to be censored in order to legally air on television, try not to completely remove any of the offending material. It should be possible to present the material in a way that gets the point across, without being too explicit, and without coming off as obviously censored. Nothing has to be totally removed or changed. Shaman King is a sprawling work, covering 35 volumes of content. But the way the base story was presented was not exactly perfect. As the series progressed, the content and the overall tone of the story started to rub some fans the wrong way. The concerns range from a belief that the characters are becoming unintentionally unsympathetic, right on up to the belief that the manga is anti-human in its philosophy. A lot of the story content that best addressed these issues was unfortunately written separately from the base manga. Various side stories addressed certain topics and backstory that didn't get a lot of attention in the base story. The people who voiced their concerns about the direction the story was going most likely either never read this material or read it after they had already completed the manga, and therefore may have already had too strong an interpretation of the base story to be swayed by this extra source material. I think if the anime's production team can find a way to implement these side stories into the base narrative, it will be easier for the audience to interpret the story closer to its original intent. It could help clear up some of the manga's biggest issues, such as Hao's backstory. Much of the formative events of Hao's past are left a mystery in the base story. Though Hao did have some sympathetic qualities in the base story, and had noble motivations for entering the tournament, these aspects of Hao's character, when paired with both his horrific actions and his nigh invulnerability, were lacking. And because of Takei's warts and all depiction of non-shamans in the later parts of the story, some fans became convinced that Takei had grown cynical through his struggle to complete the manga, and decided to build Hao up to be the true hero of the story, leading to the belief that the story was taking an anti-human stance. It didn't help that towards the end of the manga, Yo, pretty much the kindest character in the story, admitted to sharing Hao's dislike of humans. If the base story had found an opportunity to show the bullying that non-shamans had put Yo through as a child, I think Yo's statement might have accentuated his growth as a person, or at least made it easier for the audience to understand why Yo isn't entirely against Hao's viewpoint. As I mentioned earlier, love is ultimately what drives Shaman King's story. Hao's desire is to destroy all non-shaman members of the human race in order to create a shaman kingdom. Yo and his friend's mission is to stop Hao and, in the process, save the human race. Yet because non-shamans are so often portrayed in a negative light in the later parts of the manga, it can be hard to reconcile that with Shaman King's main themes. Even if the later parts of Shaman King's story really can be considered anti-human, Hao is not nearly the savior that some fans seem to believe Takei is painting him as. As the Mappa Doji one-shot shows, Hao is just as human as the non-shamans he despises. If implementing all these side stories into the anime isn't enough to change people's minds about the later half of the story, here's another suggestion. Make Manta more important. I'm kind of on the fence about this last one. Manta Oyamada is Yo's first non-shaman friend, and serves as our main normal human POV character. He's pretty much us. In the earlier chapters of Shaman King, he accompanies Yo on his various adventures, and is sometimes a big help for Yo in spite of his lack of shamanic ability. Despite his cowardly nature, when the chips are down, Manta has shown he is willing to risk life and limb for his friends. Manta, and soon other non-shamans, such as Ryu's friends, show that there are at least some decent people in the world. Manta and the other non-shamans had the potential to show that humanity did indeed deserve to be saved. Unfortunately, these characters were put on a bus for most of the second half of the manga, and few other decent non-shamans took their place for any significant length of time. If there's a way that Manta can be given more of a role in the second half of the anime without changing too much of the original material, I think this would ultimately strengthen the themes of friendship and redemption championed throughout the story. The reason I'm on the fence about this one is a matter of depiction. One plus of the original Shaman King anime is that it gave Manta more things to do with his character. He was given more importance. The main problem I had was that he eventually turned out to be a shaman all along. Towards the end of Shaman King's original anime, we find that Manta has just enough spiritual energy to gain Mosuke as a spirit partner, eventually using him to beat the hell out of Hao's Shikigami. It's sort of like how Yusuke Urameshi is portrayed as this badass human, constantly kicking the ass of the demons he's up against, only for the story of Yu Yu Hakusho to reveal in the chapter Black Arc that he was half demon. Not only did the revelation come out of seemingly nowhere, but it rendered much of his incredible accomplishments as mundane. Of course Yusuke can kick demon ass, he's a demon. It's nice that Manta got a really badass moment towards the end of the original anime, but Manta is supposed to show the value of non-shamans. Turning him into a shaman would defeat that purpose, wouldn't it? Well, not so fast. There could be at least some precedent available to justify Manta's status as shaman, while also allowing him to represent non-shamans. It is established from the beginning that Manta has enough spiritual sense to see ghosts, but it is not established that he could always see ghosts. The day Manta met Yo at the Funbari Cemetery is, for all intents and purposes, the first time that he has ever seen a ghost. This was a special event. Manta only began seeing ghosts when Yo pointed them out to him. Fast forward to Wooden Sword Ryu and his vengeful possession by Tokogero. Through several violent encounters with shamans, Ryu continuously fails to see the ghosts causing his misery, constantly blinded by his own anger. It is only right before Ryu is possessed by Tokogero that his eyes are opened to the spirit world. During the hostage situation in Yo and Anna's front yard, Anna mentions that Ryu doesn't have enough sixth sense to see ghosts, and so is confronting Yo and Amidamaru is deemed to be under the influence of a ghost possessing him. Yet, once the hostage situation is over, Ryu is not only able to see ghosts, but has now become a shaman. The trauma of seeing Tokogero for the first time awakened Ryu's ability to see ghosts, and being possessed by one unlocked his shamanic potential. The main theme of this short story arc is, what makes a decent person? From there, we get the first big display of Yo's belief that no one is beyond redemption. Only good people see ghosts, and Ryu, a delinquent who initially has it out for Yo, from then on begins his journey as a shaman. Ryu's friends are never confirmed to be able to see ghosts after this incident, but their actions during the hostage situation show that they are certainly loyal and caring towards Ryu. And despite being delinquents, for the most part, they go out of their way to avoid committing any serious crimes. They could be considered decent people. Throughout the story, various normal human characters who have never seen a ghost in their lives are made to see ghosts through various special events. Even Manta's father, Mansumi, a selfish, cynical businessman, eventually starts seeing them. In Ryu's case, he pushes beyond that into shamanism, It could be that Yo and friends were mistaken in their initial belief that Ryu was not a shaman. But what if everyone had shamanic potential? If everyone has the potential to become a shaman, we would come to the heartwarming conclusion that everyone has the potential to become good. I don't know if Takei intended such an interpretation, but I think such a message fits well with the manga's overall themes and much of Takei's work in general. If Takei was okay with such a message being included in the new anime, this could give Manta a chance to fight alongside his friends, while still holding on to his status as the audience POV. At the very least, he would have a bigger supporting role. However, if Manta does get a bigger role in the new anime, and if those producing it do decide to go the route of making Manta an eventual shaman, then it's going to have to be established that any normal human can eventually become a shaman. Giving Manta shaman status could possibly work. The problem would be how to fit these scenes into the base story without making too many big changes, and without pushing Manta too far beyond audience POV status. If that can't work, maybe during the first phase of the Shaman Fight tournament, we can occasionally show Manta engaging in various philanthropic causes, or unsuccessfully trying to get his father involved in such causes, leading to his eventual attempts to find the Shaman Fight tournament. Whatever the case, giving Yo's best friend a stronger role in the later half of the story could help. This series will need all the support it can get to be the best it can be, which leads me to my final point. Above all else, don't cheap out. This is, or should be, a no-brainer. We don't want 7 Deadly Sins Season 3. We don't want Berserk 2016. Treat this anime and its source material with respect. Above all, give the animators the time and the money they need to put on a good show. Alright, it's finally done. This video took me like a month to make. After the teaser trailer for the new anime dropped, I started making this video in Microsoft Video Editor. The first minute or so, including the mashup of teaser trailer and footage of the original anime that King Records wouldn't let me post in America unless I removed the Oversoul theme, was made in Microsoft Video Editor. I think it was because King Records wouldn't let me post that mashup without removing the music that I eventually decided to make this video. I wanted to get something related to the new Shaman King anime out there. I had been away from my college's film program and their Final Cut Pro software for years, so it took me a while to get used to the transition to Adobe Premiere Pro. I have various friends to thank for helping me with that transition. G-Wiz, Vast Campaign, Rogue Robo Productions, Sparkstorm 1000, and I'm sure various other people associated with Scene 2 Productions. Without their help, I may very well have accidentally deleted my project, or set my computer on fire, whichever comes first. I still don't know what magical place formerly available transition templates disappear to, but I don't think anyone knows, or at least no one would be able to explain it to me in a way that I would understand. Anyway, unless something happens, it seems I've officially graduated from Microsoft Video Editor. I think I'm going to make more Shaman King related videos in the future, along with short films and whatever other projects I can find time to complete in the future. I especially want to make videos about Shaman King as it relates to philosophy, as well as the philosophical aspects of other anime and manga that I'm interested in. Philosophy is in the title of my channel, after all. I'm getting used to using Adobe Premiere, but I'm not a tech guy. I'm also starting another semester of college soon, so homework is probably going to eat up a lot of my time. I'll try to post videos according to a bi-monthly schedule. Could be a shorter time frame or a longer time frame. Depends on how long the video will be and how often I can devote time to producing it. If you've got any ideas for topics I should approach, feel free to post in the comments and I'll see what I can do. And that's about it. See you all around, and don't take life too seriously.